Hey folks, this is Bailey Combs from Wargaming, and we're here today to make a mountainside. We're going to take something that looks like this and turn it into something that looks more like this. So stay tuned and see how we do it. Step-by-step process for making a mountainside. Alright folks, so we are here with our already primed and textured mountainside. So we use the texture technique that I learned from our fellow team member Jacob, where you take concrete sand and you apply it to, or you mix it with some house latex paint, mix it about a 1-to-1 ratio, apply it to some foam. So if you flip it over here, you can see we just have some foam here. Alright, this stuff here we don't want to get any primer on, so that's the reason why we wanted to apply the texture paint on top of it, because it stops this from melting and releasing some nasty stuff. So we've already done that process. If you want to see how to do it, go to our website. You can see our article on how to make an alternative L-shaped wall. That's where we kind of show you how to mix the paint, or at least you get an idea of how to mix the paint, how we applied it before we primed it. So we've already done all of that, and we're now to this part where we have a primed mountainside. So my favorite thing to do when working on terrain is to use a dry brush. So here today we're going to use the Apple Barrel brand paint. So I have the pewter gray here. I'm going to use a darker gray to get started. Okay, so I'm going to get some of that out here. I like using, again, cheaper paints. It's a little bit cheaper paints, like 30 or 50 cents a pot at Walmart is where you can get it. At least that's how I got it. Sometimes they're $1, but I got mine at 50 cents at a back to school sale. Alright, and you want to take a brush. I just found like a normal house paint brush. Alright, and I just sort of wipe most of the paint off. That's the idea behind a dry brush. And then I'm going to lightly go over the top of my terrain feature here, of my mountain. So only the extreme edges get hit. That's the idea behind a dry brush. And I want to do that to allow the extreme edges, all the sand that I have applied, to catch all the gray. So I can be a little bit thicker on this initial coat, since this is the base primary coat of paint. So I can get a little thicker in here. I don't really want all this black. The black is mostly there to get into the cracks, to hide the cracks. I don't necessarily want all this black all over the model here, or over the terrain piece. So if I go on a little thick here, that's fine. Don't forget to reapply when necessary your primary color here. So I'm going to go around the outside, keep applying my paint like so. As you can see, it adds this nice rippling effect. Be prepared to get some on you. It's still kind of wet, even though it's a dry brush. The paint will still be wet, so you'll probably end up with some wet fingers if you go about as fast as I'm going today on this. So again, I'm using Apple Barrel paints. I'm using the pewter gray. I like to have a dark gray over black, or dark gray over black when I do my initial dry brush. You can see here a little bit. Sometimes when you do the primer with our texture technique, with the concrete sand and latex paint, that there are so many ridges that sometimes the undersides don't get done. So make sure to flip your terrain piece over and add an additional spray from the bottom to try and catch that, to prevent that. But for the most part, I can hide it, since it's basically on only one side. The side that faces down towards the table, it's not really going to be seen. And I can sort of work with that brighter white color. The initial primer here was white, so that's the latex paint was white. So I guess we could avoid that by using a darker black latex paint. But we were just sort of we had some testers, and we're just using basically what we had, which is always really fun, just using what you got. And that gets us to this point where I have something that looks like this first layer of gray. And that's where we are. Before we go to the next step, we'll take a little, just want to take a look at the whole thing, make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, I missed a little bit in this crevice. I'm going to get that. Up under here, I missed it. Do that there. Looks like I got pretty much, oh, I missed this little spot here. I'm going to come in, hit that part. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with this. And I think the next piece here I'm going to go into is using the light gray. Alright, so we've let our initial color dry a little bit. I can still see a few wet spots, but that's fine. I'm going to move now on to the granite gray, a lighter gray from Apple Barrel here. You can get a fresh brush. You can. I don't suggest cleaning the brush because you don't want your brush to be wet when you do a dry brush. And I personally don't like really cleaning the brush because I like what happens when you start to mix colors. Alright, it gives you the more transition that you want to see, and it makes things just look a little bit neater. So you can even go back, as you can see here, over your original dry brush spot where there's still probably some wet paint from that first color, and you can mix the two together to kind of get a new in-between color, which just adds more to the terrain piece in my opinion. So now, before where I was really just trying to get all over the place and try and really cover things up, now I want to be a little more specific on this coat, just trying to make sure I only hit the extreme edges. So I'm going to be a little bit lighter, not as forceful, and attack things from different angles. All right, you got to kind of hit some rock faces here from a couple different angles to make sure you get the full effect you want. You can start to see here how adding this lighter gray is really pulling out some parts of the terrain feature here and really making it stand out, some of the high points, which is what we're looking for. Again, I also want to try and make sure that I have really dry brush, right, that I really don't have nearly as much paint as I did the first go around, and this continues on. This is true as I continue on through the coats. I want to make sure I have less and less wet on here. I want it to make sure it's more thoroughly dry as I go through the coats, because I don't want to just drop a huge glob of a lighter color over my dark crevice areas. So like right here, this is where I really would not want to have a lot of paint built up on my brush that was still very wet and just really flop on to these sort of underside, these areas I really want to be darker with a bunch of light color. That would just be bad. I don't want that. I'm trying to avoid that. So that's why I'm not adding as much paint as I normally would in between strokes here. And I'm going a little bit lighter because I'm trying to make sure I don't apply too much paint in the wrong areas. And the wrong areas at this point are in these crevice areas, or these extreme highlights. I don't want a lot of light color. I want just the extreme edges. That's the key to any good dry brush, is only the extreme edges of anything ever end up very light. So as you can see here, getting more of that effect. Things are starting to pop. That's what I like to see. So again, at this point I want to do kind of an overview, make sure I'm not missing anything, hit something from a different angle, so you want to kind of come up from different sides around your high points to make sure you hit all the edges. That is always key on a good dry brush. And now I end up with something that looks a little bit like this. And you can do more or less as you see fit on your model, but this is about what I want for my piece here before we go into the final dry brush coat. There we go. So that's where we're at after a light gray over a dark gray on black. Alright, we're ready to go to the final coat, so I'm going to go to a white, the Snow White Apple Barrel here. I like to add white, pure white on at the end as the extreme final highlight, so I want to use a lot less of this than I have all the other colors. And here it is extremely important to mix. I like mixing, so it makes sort of a lighter light, like a lighter than the previous light gray, but pure white is still sort of the goal at the end of the day. And I want to be very careful with this. I really want to get as much of this paint off the brush as I can. I'm really going to go just for the extreme edges. But this, as you will see when we're done, will really make the hard edges of this terrain feature pop. So as you can see here, I'm already, I want to go right along the edges where the natural edges are of the terrain feature, and you can probably already see just how much lighter this is, and it's really pulling the terrain features out. All right, the whole point of making terrain features to make it look interesting. And adding this white here at the end will really pull everything we've been trying to make out on the model. I really like this. So I like to start in the black. I like to move from the black to a dark gray to the light gray, and now we've finally moved on to white, and in the end you end up with a very convincing rock face that has a lot of depth, a lot of character, a lot of interesting features. It really makes everything stand out in the end. Now, if you've been wondering where I got this mountainside in the first place, well, I'll tell you, I've just found it at a junk shop somewhere. I was in an old antique store, and somebody had a bunch of these kinds of things just sitting there, and I bought them, and then I've spent a lot of time, like I mentioned, I refurbished them using our texture technique, and here's sort of the final step of that, where I am repainting them to make them look more like a mountainside than what they were before. If I had showed you sort of the ugly dark brown with a little bit of white where someone had just spray painted and in fact melted a lot of this model to make it the first go around, you would just not believe just how much nicer it looks now with this applied technique. Now that I'm here, just to sort of add an extra step, I'll go do this outside, but I like to add a clear matte varnish at the end here to sort of protect what I've been working on, because some of the bigger grains of sand that are on here, they can be kind of fragile and they like to come off. We don't want that. So I'll go outside and I'll add a clear matte varnish to this, and I'll bring it back inside and we'll compare to the original model that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So here we are, folks. This is our original piece that we started out with that we wanted to copy, and here's the piece that we've just finished. Now you might be able to notice on this one's a lot brighter. I put a lot more white on this one than probably I wanted to now that I look at it. There's a lot of white. It's very bright, but I just kind of feel like it's a little overdone. This one, the white is a lot more subtle. It's only in the places that really the character of the terrain piece is, and that's what I really was looking for. So I like this one that we just did a lot more than our original, just because I didn't put so much white. But if I wanted the more exaggerated contrast, I could just go right back over this with the white paint and make it a lot whiter than what it is now. Well, that is what we have for you today. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and comment below. Also check out our website and the rest of our YouTube channel for more content on how to make terrain, as well as follow our Twitch stream where we do Tinker Tuesdays, where we do painting tutorials and other hobby-related videos. In addition, we also do battle reports on Mondays on our Monday Minis show. And our YouTube also contains travel vlogs of all the tournaments we go to, so you get an idea of what it's like to be a wargamer in sort of every aspect of the game. So, until next time, I'm Bailey Combs from Nicholas Wargaming, reminding you that if your lists start to tank, then it is time to get dank.